This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Tuesday, April 7th. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at our VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. The concern over the condition of British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is growing on Tuesday. The 55-year-old leader remains in a London hospital where he's receiving care for worsening coronavirus symptoms. Johnson was moved to an intensive care unit late Monday after his condition began to rapidly deteriorate. He has received oxygen support but has not been placed on a ventilator. And as Johnson battles COVID-19, Britain is seeing a spike in its coronavirus death toll, reporting 600 on Sunday and 400 or more on Monday. Johnson was diagnosed with COVID-19 12 days ago. As Henry Ridgwell reports, the shock announcement overshadowed Queen Elizabeth's rare televised address to the nation.
Boris Johnson was taken to St Thomas's Hospital in central London at around 8 p.m. local time Sunday. Hospital sources say he did not require an ambulance. Johnson was first diagnosed with the coronavirus 10 days prior to his hospital admission. He posted several video messages while under self-isolation, and it was clear he was unwell.
I'm absolutely confident that we will beat it, and we will beat it together, and we will do it by staying at home.
Doctors say the Prime Minister continues to suffer from a fever.
There are instances where people who are otherwise fit and healthy and who are not above the 70-year-old sort of age qualification for isolating, where they struggle a bit. And certain people do that. We don't understand why.
Johnson's partner, Carrie Simons, who is pregnant, is also showing symptoms of COVID-19, but it's reported she has not been tested. Johnson remains in contact with government ministers via video link.
But he'll continue to be kept informed as to what's happening and to be in charge of the government.
The US president wished Johnson a speedy recovery Sunday.
All Americans are praying for him. He's a friend of mine. He's a great gentleman and a great leader.
There are concerns that Johnson may struggle to lead Britain's response, with indications that the country is following a similar trajectory to the worst-hit European nations, Italy and Spain. With the nation in crisis, Queen Elizabeth, the official head of state, made a rare televised address Sunday night from Windsor Castle outside London. The monarch invoked Britain's struggles through the Second World War.
It reminds me of the very first broadcast I made in 1940, helped by my sister. We, as children, spoke from here at Windsor to children who had been evacuated from their homes and sent away for their own safety. We should take comfort that while we may have more still to endure, better days will return. We will be with our friends again. We will be with our families again. We will meet again.
Stirring words soon overshadowed by the Prime Minister's admission to hospital the same evening. Doctors emphasise the move is precautionary, but it underlines the seriousness of Britain's evolving COVID-19 crisis. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.
Now, across the Atlantic Ocean, the United States has confirmed nearly 11,000 deaths, making it the country with the third highest official death tally behind Italy and Spain. More than 40% of the U.S. deaths are now in New York State, and the majority of those are in New York City. Now to Africa, where Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta is barring movement into and out of the country's 4 regions most affected by the coronavirus, including Nairobi. Kenya Airports Authority says it is suspending domestic flights for 21 days at Nairobi's International Airport, and Kenya Railways is halting its daily service between Nairobi and Mombasa. Kenyan officials have reported 158 confirmed coronavirus cases and 6 deaths. In Ivory Coast, police in Abidjan say they fired tear gas Monday at youths after they set up burning barricades and tried to dismantle a mobile testing center for the coronavirus. In Southern Africa, Zimbabwe is allowing its citizens to access remittances from the diaspora and allow farmers to take their produce to the market, easing a 3-week COVID-19 lockdown that some analysts fear could push the struggling economy to the brink of collapse. Zimbabwe is reporting 1 death from 9 cases of the coronavirus. Now, a new mobile alert created in South Africa is taking the lead in disseminating information about the coronavirus pandemic into the hands of millions. VOA Salam Solomon explains.
A WhatsApp bot developed by a South African organization is helping millions of people around the world get the latest information about the coronavirus. At the time the virus broke out, PrayKill.org had already created digital tools to help people in the developing world improve their health and well-being. One of their most successful was called Mom Connect, a mobile phone service giving expectant mothers vital information about pregnancy milestones and linking them to services. Gustav Praykild, the founder of PrayKill.org, saw a similar need for information relating to coronavirus. The South African government had set up hotlines, but they were unable to handle the massive volume of calls, and misinformation was spreading quickly.
We were worried that our users wouldn't have access to a trusted source of information. So people, hear rumors and they hear stories, and people get panicky and worried about what they should do to keep themselves healthy, especially as all the lockdowns started happening.
Praykill created COVID-19 Health Alert, offering a WhatsApp-based helpline, real-time data, and automated responses to common questions in numerous languages.
Looking for the latest coronavirus updates? Stop searching or panicking and start chatting. Just add 0600-123-456 to your contacts and start a conversation on WhatsApp with the word hi. Here you can get the latest news and tips.
Within the first 10 days, the bot had 3.5 million users, and Praykill partnered with the World Health Organization to create a similar bot to reach a global audience. One of the primary goals is to counter false information about the pandemic.
We're now launching it in many languages, and on that bot, you can find out information, but we also publish falsehoods and myths, because sometimes what happens is you need to actively counteract the falsehoods. You can't just provide the positive information. You also have to say there is information out there that is incorrect, and there are ways that are incorrect how to deal with this pandemic, and we are actively working towards counteracting those falsehoods.
WhatsApp, which is owned by Facebook, is extremely popular in the developing world, where it has largely replaced Facebook and even email as the primary form of digital communication and networking. It has more than 2 billion users worldwide. In an email to VOA, Machi Jidenma, a member of the WhatsApp Partnerships and Business Development team, said, "We think the most important step WhatsApp can take during this crisis is to help connect people directly with public health officials, providing crucial updates about the coronavirus." Jidenma said the company moved quickly to make WHO Health Alert go live in as many countries as possible, including India, Singapore, Israel, Indonesia, South Africa, Nigeria, Argentina, Brazil, and the United Kingdom. "We have worked with the World Health Organization to set up WHO Health Alert and are partnering with national health ministries around the world," she said. Each of these health alert lines provides education on myths and rumors circulating about coronavirus. Praykill said the speed at which the bot has been adapted has been beyond expectations.
It's been unprecedented success. More than 12 million people now have accessed the WHO line in the last 10 days since we launched. And we've now launched in multiple other languages as well, including Arabic and Spanish and French and more languages to come. And so clearly people are finding the information useful.
Now it's time to see whether it's having an impact on users' behavior and health.
I think the next step will be to try and understand how people are interpreting that information and whether it's actually helping them to change their behavior.
Salam Solomon, VOA News, Washington.
Despite no scientific research showing its effectiveness, President Donald Trump says the U.S. has bought almost 30 million doses of hydroxychloroquine for the treatment of COVID-19. The president continues to push the drug despite his top health expert warning that the evidence for it is anecdotal. White House correspondent Patsy Widakuswara has more.
Pharmacies in Africa are running out of anti-malaria pills as people stock up on the drugs as a defense against the coronavirus, despite no data showing its effectiveness. Desperate countries are expanding access to hydroxychloroquine to treat COVID-19, including the U.S.
We bought massive amounts of it, 29 million doses of it. We have it coming from all of the labs. We're actually now doing it here because in case it does work, we want to have it.
Hydroxychloroquine, known by its brand name Plaquenil, is used to treat malaria, lupus, and arthritis. Despite the drug's unproven benefits, since February, Trump has been pushing it with extraordinary zeal.
I may take it, okay? I may take it. And I'll have to ask my doctors about that, but I may take it.
Anthony Fauci, Trump's leading health expert on the coronavirus task force, has repeatedly said evidence the drug works is anecdotal. Axios reported that White House advisor Peter Navarro has clashed with Fauci on the drug, which the administration approved for emergency use in mid-March, even though no clinical study has been done to test its effectiveness to treat COVID-19.
Chloroquine's been tried for many viral diseases, more than a dozen. It's never been shown to work in those viral diseases for a clinical benefit. And so we have just a little bit of human evidence that it might work. The studies are small, and we desperately need results from randomized clinical trials to see if it's going to have any effect.
Trump has suggested that countries with high malaria rates show low numbers of COVID-19 and that people with lupus are not as affected by the coronavirus. That is conjecture, said Anand Parekh, a former Deputy Assistant Secretary for Health, now with the Bipartisan Policy Center.
Until we see data and evidence, we should not jump to any conclusions. The more likely reason, for example, countries in Africa not reporting a high number of cases is simply because testing has lagged in those countries.
Hospitals in the U.S. have been giving hydroxychloroquine to coronavirus patients, reasoning that it is relatively safe and likely will not hurt. The drug is not considered safe for people with abnormal heart rhythms. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News.
Global markets are enjoying a second consecutive day of gains Tuesday, with Europe's major indexes moving into positive territory amid rising hope that the devastating effects of the coronavirus pandemic may be easing. London markets are up more than 2%. Paris's CAC 40 is up nearly 3.5%, and the DAX in Frankfurt is up well over 4%. Europe's higher number continues Monday's much-needed rally across the globe, capped by gains of 7% or more on Wall Street. The gains resumed again Tuesday in Asia, with Japan's benchmark Nikkei index earning 2% at the closing bell. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, as coronavirus continues to spread fear and gloom, some Nigerians turn to rabbits for comfort and cheer. We'll be right back.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, the deadly coronavirus is spreading across Africa, causing anxiety and fear. Join me, Linor Moudou, and a panel of experts to answer your questions about COVID-19 and to distinguish myth from fact on a special edition of Straight Talk Africa.
A U.S. neuroscientist in the state of Massachusetts was looking for a chance to use his scientific expertise to help fight the coronavirus. Then, on the same day, the pandemic forced his lab to temporarily close. An idea was born. VOA correspondent Mariama Diallo has more.
In the middle of the deadly worldwide coronavirus pandemic, Michael Wells, a 34-year-old neuroscientist, wanted to be useful.
I was looking for opportunities that I could partake in that would allow me to use my background in virus biology. And I hadn't seen anything yet.
Shortly after, he reached out on social media to all scientists willing to lend their expertise. Wells assembled a shareable spreadsheet of volunteers, which so far has about 7,000 members.
What we want to do is be in a situation where every single health official in this country is going to have access to this database, and they can do what they want with it.
And he says some organizations such as endcoronavirus.org are already tapping into the resource.
Creative decision makers can look at that and say, what is my problem right now? And what do I project my problem being in 2-4 weeks? And how do I make sure that I can get these resources online? Where we have so many people that want to get off the sidelines and be part of this all of society response.
As health workers risk their own lives to treat an increasing number of patients, Wells' database offers a way for other professionals who are now on the sideline to join the fight. Mariama Diallo, VOA News.
The coronavirus pandemic is being compared to the deadly global Spanish flu pandemic of 1918. Before COVID-19 hit worldwide earlier this year, the Museum of New York City opened an exhibit dedicated to the dreadful events of the 1918 pandemic. Anna Nielsen reports, and Anna Rice narrates our story.
A few months ago, Sarah Henry, chief curator at the Museum of the City of New York, was preparing an exhibit about the deadly Spanish flu of 1918. Today, that history is Henry's reality, as New York City has become the center of the coronavirus outbreak in the U.S. But Henry is careful about applying yesterday's lessons to COVID-19.
I think we look back to history to see how we've coped in the past, to see if there are lessons to be drawn, but always carefully, because sometimes you take a lesson from one disease, you apply it to another disease, and it doesn't translate so well.
The 1918 pandemic killed, by various estimates, from 20 to 100 million people worldwide, more lives than the war. In the U.S., the first waves of the so-called Spanish influenza arrived with soldiers returning from Europe toward the end of the World War I. A ship docking in New York in the summer of 1918 brought the first cases. Since the war wasn't over, the city decided to keep the docks open, isolating the sick on dry land.
They had a big debate about whether to close the schools. And we just went through that debate here, and the schools have just closed in New York City as we speak. In 1918, they decided not to close the schools because they felt that many of the students would be safer in school where there was more hygienic practice. And of course, they were looking at the tenement neighborhoods.
New York's theaters also stayed open. 100 years ago, with no radio, TV, or let alone internet, theaters were used to help spread information, which included lectures on self-care. Interestingly, the mortality rate in New York turned up being lower than in many American cities. Historians believe this was because authorities closed the subway after quickly recognizing the dangers of keeping it open.
We're looking at particularly the rush hours, in the morning and the evening and thinking about how to get the subways less crowded. So this was a kind of combination of mandatory and voluntary in that they worked together with the different business sectors to plan that different kinds of businesses would open at different times.
What makes COVID-19 different from the Spanish flu is that the 1918 sickness was more dangerous for younger, healthy adults, especially those who worked in the service industry. They were obliged to wear masks, and those who didn't were fined and faced serious consequences.
They authorized the police to give out tickets. Basically, they made coughing and sneezing a misdemeanor if you didn't cover your mouth.
The New York City hospitals were overwhelmed by the number of patients. With the population of about 5 million people at the time, more than 30,000 New Yorkers died during the pandemic. It took the city 2.5 months to finally conquer the virus. For Anna Nelson in New York, Anna Rice, VOA News.
Due to the coronavirus, worries are mounting for African cinema at all levels, from filming to the big screen. Current coronavirus restrictions are not only having an impact at the box office, but also preventing new films being produced. Adam Reed explains.
Cinemas are just one casualty of lockdown measures around the world. Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, is at the heart of African cinema, but has been hit hard by the government-imposed state of emergency, which has banned large gatherings and shows. The Burkinabe love to go out and watch a movie in normal times, but the Newaya Theatre is just one example of a space that's just become impossible to use safely. Manager Rodrigue Rakis Kabore says he's losing around $33,000 a month, which up to 40 members of staff depend on. Film director Abdul Baghi was about to show his latest movie, Here's My Ex, a romantic comedy. He fears the current situation means no one will get to see it.
The screening of this film would have earned us around $3,500 American per week, so obviously it is a loss. It is a loss for us.
He's also worried the chance to finance his next film may have also already collapsed. As for the Newaya, if the restrictions don't improve within the next month, it fears for its future and for the surrounding local businesses.
That was Adam Reed of Reuters reporting. The Sudanese military says it will return the remains of 29 officers who were executed 3 decades ago to their families. The men were arrested in April 1990 and accused of participating in an alleged coup plot against the then president Omar al-Bashir. As Naba Muhyiddin reports from Khartoum, families of the executed officers now want to see Bashir and his aides brought to justice.
Abbas Ghalib was a colonel in the Sudanese army when he was arrested in 1990 and accused of taking part in a coup attempt against then-President Omar al-Bashir. He was one of 38 military officers who were arrested and one of only 10 who escaped the death penalty. Ghalib remembers seeing his fellow officers put on trial in Khartoum.
It was mock trials. You stand in the court if you are guilty or not. If yes, the sentence is execution. If not guilty, the sentence is also execution. You don't have the right to defend yourself or any kind of rights. You don't have any right to talk. Once the execution sentence was issued, they took the officers clawed with handcuffs.
The executions took place less than a year after Bashir came to power in 1989 military coup. They were intended to eliminate opponents to Bashir and his Islamist political regime. Last week, Sudan's public prosecutor charged Bashir and a group of his aides with undermining Sudan's constitutional order through the 1989 coup. The news was welcomed by Khartoum resident Muhammad Bashir. When his father, Lieutenant Colonel Bashir Abudik, was executed, Muhammad was only 4 years old. He has dreamed of achieving justice for his father ever since.
I've been waiting for this day for the whole last 30 years to finally find the remains of the martyrs, to know how the trial and the conditions they have been through. These are our demands for the past 30 years.
Colonel Ghalib was spared death only through luck and pressure by the military to stop the executions. In the end, he spent only 3 years in prison. He supports efforts to hold Bashir accountable for his crimes and make Sudan into a viable democracy.
Our main goal was to restore democracy, legitimacy for the exited political parties, and finding a constitutional draft determining the democratic governance structures in Sudan, and also establishing politically unbiased army, police, and other forces.
Last month, the Sudanese military announced it will upgrade the ranks of the executed officers to restore their honor. But that is just the first step for Galib and the families of the victims. They want the officers' bodies returned for a proper burial and for their killers to be put on trial. Naba Muhiddin for VOA News, Khartoum.
Demand for pet companionship is skyrocketing for one farm in Nigeria, which supplies rabbits to those looking for creature comfort during the COVID-19 lockdown in Lagos. Edward Barron reports.
Many businesses in Nigeria are currently closed, but one firm says business in bunnies is booming. They're keeping people company during the lockdown in Africa's biggest city, Lagos. After the closure of her workplace, 27-year-old oil merchant Sandra Dozie is among those who bought a rabbit for some creature comfort during self-isolation.
My family and I got bored of just being just us at home. We wanted someone that would be there to, play with and just mess around with.
Akinjo Joshua runs an online business supplying rabbits. He says sales have peaked as local demand for pet companionship grows.
The increase is much because people want to stay with something they can reckon with. The rabbit, being an intelligent animal, fits in this space.
The world's largest animal rights organization, PETA, condemns the breeding of rabbits to be kept as pets.
I love her so much.
But Sandra's certain she has a buddy in her brand new bunny.
That was Edward Barron of Reuters reporting. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.